Welcome to Book of Legends. I'm Edward. Today, we turn the pages to remember those remarkable lives that left a deep impact on the world. Their work, passion, and dedication touched countless hearts. As we look back on their journey, we honor their legacy and keep their memories alive for generations to come. Robert Carradine, best known for his role in Revenge of the Nerds, and as the warm, supportive father on Lizzie McGuire, has passed away at the age of 71. Born on March 24th, 1954, into a legendary Hollywood family, he was the son of actor John Carradine and the brother of David and Keith Carradine. Despite that legacy, he built a career that was uniquely his own, marked by charm, humility, and a genuine connection with audiences. Carradine rose to fame in 1984 with Revenge of the Nerds, where his portrayal of Louis Skolnick turned him into an unexpected hero for anyone who had ever felt like an outsider. The film became a cult classic, and his performance helped redefine what it meant to be a leading man. Over the years, he appeared in a wide range of films and television projects, including the Oscar-nominated Coming Home. However, for many younger fans, he will always be remembered as Sam McGuire on Lizzie McGuire. As Lizzie's dad, he brought warmth, humor, and sincerity to the screen, creating a character that felt real and deeply comforting. Hilary Duff, who played his on-screen daughter, shared heartfelt words, remembering the kindness and care he brought not just to his role, but to everyone around him. Off-screen, Carradine was known as a devoted father and a gentle soul. His daughter, actress Ever Carradine, described him as someone who led with love and compassion. Robert Carradine leaves behind a legacy of memorable performances and a spirit that resonated with generations of fans. Emerging from the creative surge of 1960s London, Marianne Faithfull was born on December 29th, 1946. She quickly became one of the most recognizable voices of her generation, though not in the traditional sense. Her sound wasn't polished or perfect. It was real, textured, and deeply human. That raw honesty became her signature. Faithfull first captured attention with the hauntingly delicate As Tears Go By, but her journey was anything but straightforward. She lived through the highs of fame and the challenges that came with it, navigating personal struggles in the public eye. What makes her story remarkable is not just her early success, but her ability to reinvent herself when many thought her career had faded. In the late 1970s, she returned with Broken English, an album that redefined her artistry. Her voice, now rougher, weathered by experience, carried a new kind of power. It told stories not just of love, but of survival, reflection, and truth. That evolution earned her renewed respect and introduced her to a whole new audience. Beyond music, Faithfull also explored acting, adding more layers to her creative legacy. Yet it was always her voice, imperfect, expressive, and unmistakably hers, that left the deepest mark. Marianne Faithfull passed away at the age of 78. While her passing marked the end of a remarkable life, her influence continues to echo through generations of artists who value authenticity over perfection. She wasn't just a star of her time. She was a reminder that art at its best comes from living fully, embracing change, and finding strength in every chapter of life. Dick Barnett was one of those players whose style made you stop and watch a little closer. Born on October 2nd, 1936, he brought a unique flair to the game of basketball that set him apart from his peers. His signature shooting motion, often described as unorthodox, became a defining part of his identity on the court, and over time, it turned into a symbol of confidence and individuality. Barnett is best remembered for his time with the New York Knicks, where he played a key role during what many fans consider the golden era of the franchise. As part of the championship-winning squads in the early 1970s, he contributed not just with skill, but with composure and experience. Those teams helped shape the legacy of the National Basketball Association, and Barnett's presence was an important piece of that story. Off the court, he was known for his intelligence and thoughtful personality. He valued education deeply and pursued academic achievements alongside his basketball career, showing that athletes can have a strong impact beyond sports. Barnett lived a long and full life, passing away at the age of 88. While no official cause was publicly shared, what stands out most is not how he passed, but how he lived, dedicated to his craft, his team, and his personal growth. For fans of basketball history, Dick Barnett remains more than just a name on a roster. He represents a time when the game was evolving, when personality shone through play, and when passion for the sport created lasting memories. Bud Cort, the wonderfully offbeat actor best known for his role in Harold and Maude, has passed away at the age of 77. With his unmistakable presence and quiet intensity, Cort brought to life the character of Harold, a young man fascinated by mortality, opposite the radiant Ruth Gordon. Their pairing helped turn the film into one of cinema's most beloved cult classics, resonating with generations of audiences. Born with a passion for storytelling, Cort often spoke about how deeply he loved the stage. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming a creative force, drawn to the magic of performance and the connection it creates. His breakthrough came when he was discovered by director Robert Altman, who cast him in films like MASH and Brewster McCloud. But it was Harold and Maude that defined his career, earning him nominations at major awards and cementing his place in film history. Cort's journey wasn't without hardship. A serious car accident in 1979 nearly derailed his career, requiring extensive recovery. Yet his resilience carried him forward, allowing him to continue working for decades in projects such as Dogma and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Colleagues remembered him not just for his talent, but for his originality and spirit. Filmmaker Edgar Wright once described him as magnetic, while Jamie Lee Curtis recalled his unique charm and depth. He is survived by his wife Vicky and their family. From a young admirer waiting outside stage doors to a performer who left his own lasting mark, Bud Cort's story is one of passion, perseverance, and individuality. A life that quietly, but powerfully, took center stage. Success stories often arrive polished, stripped of the struggle that made them meaningful. But some lives resist simplification. This is one of them. It is the story of a man who reached the highest peaks of Hollywood, lost nearly everything, more than once, and still chose to keep building. In a single year, he lost a defining television role, tens of millions of his own money, and an 18-year marriage. Yet none of it was entirely new. His life had always moved in cycles of ascent and collapse, creation and consequence. What makes his journey remarkable is not just the scale of his success, but the price he paid for believing in his instincts when no one else did. and the quiet strength it took to continue afterward. A childhood without roots. There is a unique loneliness that comes from never staying in one place long enough to belong. As a child, he lived that reality repeatedly. Moving from town to town, school to school, he was always the outsider trying to understand already formed social circles. Each move meant starting over, new faces, new expectations, new hierarchies. Instead of breaking him, this constant displacement shaped him. He became observant, careful, and emotionally intelligent in ways most children never have to be. He learned to read rooms before entering them, to understand people before trusting them. This quiet skill would later become one of his greatest strengths as an actor. But at the time, it was simply survival. A way to navigate a world where belonging never came easily or naturally. Discipline, faith, and silent expectations. His upbringing was grounded in structure and responsibility. His father believed in discipline, routine, and the dignity of hard work. There were no shortcuts in that household, no illusions about easy success. His mother provided warmth, but the family's constant movement stretched her energy thin. Faith was present, shaping the rhythm of their lives. But it was not doctrine that defined him. It was expectation. The expectation to work, to contribute, to be practical. Dreams were not discouraged, but they were measured against reality. That balance created tension in him early. The desire to pursue something expressive and uncertain, against the weight of a world that valued stability and predictability. That tension would follow him into adulthood and shape nearly every major decision he made, finding escape in water and words. While he struggled to find stability in people and places, he found it elsewhere, in water and in stories. Swimming became an early refuge, offering both discipline and solitude. It gave him something to control in a life that often felt unpredictable. At the same time, he discovered storytelling. Books, films, and eventually his own writing became a private sanctuary. As a teenager, he wrote poetry no one else read, quiet reflections he wasn't ready to voice aloud. These creative outlets weren't just hobbies, they were lifelines. They allowed him to process emotion, to imagine different lives, and to express what he couldn't otherwise say. Without realizing it, he was already building the inner world that would later fuel its performances and creative risks, choosing the uncertain path. When he entered university, he chose a practical major, business administration. It was the safe option, the expected one, but the pull toward acting never disappeared. Quietly, almost secretly, he began exploring it through classes and small performances. What started as curiosity quickly revealed itself as something deeper. Acting wasn't just an interest, it felt essential. By the time he graduated, he faced a choice that would define his life. Follow the stable path or risk everything on something uncertain. He chose risk. It wasn't a dramatic declaration, but a quiet commitment. His parents expressed concern, not opposition. They understood the odds. So did he. But understanding the risk didn't stop him. It simply meant he was willing to accept the consequences. The years of obscurity. The early years were not glamorous. They were defined by struggle, rejection, and persistence. He worked whatever jobs he could find. Manual labor, driving, behind-the-scenes work, anything to support himself while chasing auditions. Each rejection added weight, but not enough to stop him. Hollywood didn't immediately recognize him. He was seen as competent, but not exceptional, easy to overlook. Those years tested him more than any later failure would. There was no fame to cushion the disappointment, no success to justify the effort, just belief. It would have been easy to quit, to return to a safer life. But he didn't. The same adaptability he developed as a child, the ability to endure unfamiliar, uncomfortable situations, kept him moving forward when nothing else did. The break that disappeared. His first real opportunity nearly ended his career before it began. He was cast in a meaningful role in a major film, a moment he had worked years to achieve. He prepared intensely, delivered his performance, and believed it would finally change everything. Then it was cut, completely removed from the final version. His presence reduced to almost nothing. For many, that would have been the breaking point, a sign to walk away. But instead of accepting it as failure, he treated it as part of the process. The disappointment was real, but so was his determination. What could have been an ending became a turning point. The door didn't open fully, but it didn't close either. And that small distinction made all the difference. The rise to stardom. When his breakthrough finally came, it came with force. He didn't ease it to success, he surged into it. Film after film elevated his status, turning him into one of the most recognizable and bankable actors of his time. Audiences connected with him. Directors trusted him. Studios invested in him. He wasn't just successful, he was dominant. At the height of his career, he represented a particular kind of leading man. Grounded, strong, quietly charismatic. His success extended beyond acting into directing and producing, where he took creative control of the stories he wanted to tell. It was during this period that he reached the pinnacle of recognition, winning major awards and achieving global acclaim. But with that success came pressure, and with pressure came consequences. The first collapse. At the height of his success, his personal life began to fracture. His marriage, which had endured years of struggle and uncertainty, could not withstand the demands of his career at its peak. The divorce was not just a personal loss, it was public, financial, and deeply emotional. He later acknowledged his role in its breakdown with honesty, admitting that he hadn't been as present as he should have been. That acknowledgement mattered. It reflected growth, but it didn't undo the damage. At the same time, his professional reputation began to shift. Projects that once would have been celebrated were now criticized. The same industry that had lifted him up began to question him. It was a dual collapse, personal and professional, happening simultaneously. Public failure and private reflection. Few failures are as visible as those that happen in Hollywood. When one of his most ambitious projects faced criticism and financial challenges, it became a symbol of excess and miscalculation. The narrative shifted quickly, from visionary to reckless. The media amplified every setback, every misstep. But behind the headlines was something quieter. A man processing loss, reassessing priorities, and continuing to work. He didn't disappear. He didn't lash out. He absorbed the criticism and kept going. Those years changed him. The confidence that once defined him became more measured, more reflective. He was no longer the rising star or the dominant force. He was something else, a survivor of his own ambition, learning how to move forward in a world that had already begun to move on. Rebuilding a life. The years that followed were not about reclaiming dominance. They were about rebuilding stability. He focused on his children, maintaining a consistent presence in their lives. He continued working, choosing roles that reflected a more grounded perspective. Eventually, he found love again and remarried, creating what appeared to be a more balanced life. For nearly 2 decades, it seemed like he had found equilibrium. The intensity that once consumed him had softened, or at least appeared to. He built a life that valued presence as much as achievement. But the core of who he was, the drive, the commitment, the refusal to compromise on his vision, never truly changed. It simply waited for the right moment to reemerge. The unexpected comeback. At a time when many actors fade into the background, he returned to prominence in an entirely new way. Television, once considered secondary to film, became the platform for his resurgence. His performance reached millions, reintroducing him to a new generation while reminding older audiences why he mattered. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a reinvention. He became the centerpiece of one of the most watched shows in the country, proving that relevance is not limited by age. This phase of his career felt different. It was less about proving something and more about embodying something he had always understood. It was a return, not just to success, but to clarity, the second gamble. Even as he enjoyed renewed success, he began working on something far more ambitious, a project he had carried with him for decades. It was large, risky, and deeply personal. Financing it required him to invest a significant portion of his own money. Once again, he chose belief over caution. Once again, he ignored the skepticism of the industry. Balancing this project with his television commitments created tension that eventually became unsustainable. He faced a choice: compromise or commit fully. True to form, he chose commitment. The decision cost him one of the most successful roles of his later career, but it aligned with something deeper: his identity as a builder of stories, regardless of the cost. Another personal loss. Almost simultaneously, his second marriage came to an end. The timing echoed the past in a way that felt almost cruel. Once again, professional upheaval and personal loss collided. Once again, he found himself navigating both under public scrutiny. The reasons remained private, handled with dignity, but the impact was undeniable. It wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the end of a chapter he believed represented growth and redemption. Losing it forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth: that some patterns run deeper than intention. That even when we believe we've changed, the core of who we are can still shape outcomes in ways we don't fully control. What remains? After everything, the success, the failures, the losses, what remains is surprisingly simple: his children, his work, his identity. These are the constants that endured when everything else shifted. He continues to create, to develop stories, to invest in ideas that matter to him. He continues to show up as a father, with a perspective shaped by experience rather than ambition. The scale of his life may be extraordinary, but the foundation of what sustains him is not. It is built on presence, purpose, and persistence. These are not glamorous qualities, but they are enduring ones. They are what allow someone to continue after everything else has fallen away. Conclusion: the man who kept going, in the end, his story is not about perfection or even success. It is about persistence, about the willingness to continue building, even when previous structures have collapsed. He's been celebrated, criticized, forgotten, and rediscovered. He has lost fortunes, relationships, and opportunities. And yet, through all of it, he has remained consistent in one essential way. He keeps going. Not because it is easy, but because it is who he is. That may be the most honest measure of a life. Not how often you win, but whether you continue after you lose. And in that sense, his story is not just remarkable, it is deeply human.